Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. Now, I know last week we talked a little bit about some of the conditions and things that I'm looking for if I am going to be hunting early season. Now, I made it very clear that it's not necessarily that high on my priority list as getting sits in during that early season, that last few weeks of September, but it really starts to ramp up in the first couple weeks of October going into the end of the month. Now, if I am going to be hunting in the early season, in those first couple weeks of the season, this is a tree stand setup that I've used in the past, and it's the exact formula of what I'm looking for when it comes to an early season tree stand setup. Now this, I would rate this stand a 9 or 10 out of 10. This is how good this spot is for an early season setup. It could potentially produce a very good deer here in the early season just because of the conditions of this scenario, right? So I've always said that my farm does better on bean ears because I feel like the patterning when it comes to the bucks is a lot more consistent when it comes to having that longer attraction period with those beans. I feel like they're showing up a little bit sooner just because of the high quality forage with those beans, whereas corn is a little bit later. It's more of that cold weather when there's not a lot of other highly attractive food sources available. Then they're gonna shift towards that high carbohydrate corn to meet their nutritional needs. But the first thing that I wanna talk about when it comes to this early season setup, you might be able to see it. I've got it cleared out here in this cedar tree. I'm roughly 30 yards from this trail, 27 to 30 yards, somewhere in there from this inside corner. Now, when I'm talking about an inside corner, I'm gonna throw the drone up and show you guys. I've got a couple of them here, but this is just mainly one big one. And now the reasoning for me wanting to be in this inside corner is it's got cover on a lot of sides. These deer feel very secure and comfortable being in these back corners because they have a lot of lines of cover. This one's excellent, and we've enhanced it with switchgrass over the last few years, so it's even better. But I've got this inside corner. I've also got an apple tree present. Now, I'll show you guys, it's got a decent amount of apples on this tree. It normally produces pretty well, and I actually had, I'll throw the footage up, I had a nice 2-3-year-old 8-pointer in here last year. He ended up coming right up out of this draw in front of me. I wasn't gonna shoot him, but it was pretty cool because he ended up working his way along this fence line here and coming to this apple tree. So that just tells you and shows you how attractive those apple trees can be during that early season time period. Now, another situation that I have going on here is I've got a mock scrape. Now with this mock scrape, I don't have any trees overhanging on this road to allow me to get a good shot when these deer come through here. So I ended up just digging in a sapling and tying off a vine right off of that sapling. By the looks of it, I've got to replace it. It's getting pretty old. It got beat up pretty good last year, but those are some things that I'm gonna be doing here towards the end of the month as we go through July. But this whole location and this setup feeds in perfectly to my bedding to food source movement. I've got really good bedding here across this whole hillside. It's more of that overgrown canopy timber style type bedding. So that feeds in perfectly to those early season scenarios where the bucks are trying to stay cool, get out of the bugs, have that good airflow through the timber. But I've also got the highest quality food source at this time, at that early season time. It's gonna be an apple tree, it's gonna be beans, and it's gonna be my food plots. So I've got everything working in my favor when it comes to bedding to food source movement. I've got everything they could want here. I've got water sources. I've got all the food necessities. I've got the cover. So now the next thing that I have to dial in is, can I hunt this spot effectively and safely? So there's a lot of properties and situations where you have the correct circumstances. You have the good bedding, you have the high quality food source, you have that line of movement, but it's deep into a property, or it's in an area where it's pretty risky going in there to try to hunt. But this, on the other hand, the reason I'm rating this a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 is because the simple fact that I can hunt this very easily and very safely. My access is through a wide open field back here that's screened by this fence line. I'm hunting over this ag field. These deer are nowhere near here when I come in here. I can slip right out of this ag field, slip right down here, get in this cedar tree, and nothing's gonna have a clue that I'm in here. Now on the other hand, my wind direction, I can get a north or a northeast cutting back just like this, blowing into this wide open field behind me, a north blowing straight back, and at the same time as I'm safe and these deer are never going to catch my wind, any deer coming out of this bedding area are gonna have that wind quartering to them. So if you can picture this, this is the line of movement coming right here to this ag field. Coming out of this inside corner, there's an old logging road running right down through here. They're coming out of this big timber just like so. I've got a north wind blowing like this. They've got that wind. A big buck's gonna feel very comfortable coming out in this corner during daylight because he's got the wind that's good for him. I've also got the wind that's good for me. So playing the wind is top priority for a hunter, but at the same time, a big buck is just as smart as we are, probably smarter. So he's not gonna make any mistakes when it comes to his own security and safety when it comes to the wind direction either. So he's gonna always wanna have that wind in his face or in his face slightly to know things are safe. So that's why I like this setup so much, is I can have a perfect wind. He can too. But the problem for him is he's never going to come up into this wide open field behind me. He's always gonna cut this corner because he's staying in cover. He's not gonna loop up behind me and go out in this wide open field and be visible. He's gonna come right through this little logging road gap. He's gonna stay in the cover, tuck himself behind these fence lines. He's got the topography roll here. It's high right here, it's low back here. High quality beans, switchgrass as this point keeps continuing out. He's got high quality fall cover all over in here. Food plot directly behind the camera, 50 to 75 yards away. He's also got a water hole 100 yards away. So he's got this whole scenario laid out perfectly, and at the same time, so do I. This is the exact setup that I'm looking for to take advantage of if I am going to be hunting early season. I normally have a camera right on this fence line, on this inside corner, and I have frequent daytime bucks cutting in here, cutting through here, feeding on these beans, staying on the back side of this rolling hill, this rolling ag field. They're staying on this backside, feeding along on their line of movement. And I'll show you guys all these contours and all the different habitat strategies that we have implemented in here. I've got that mock scrape, I've got the switchgrass, I've got the plots. This spring I came in here and I put pines in a row. I'm trying to enhance this edge with screening. In the future, I might litter this with some more chestnuts or apples, dogwoods, shrubs. All of this stuff enhances what's already a really good situation and setup and makes it even better. If I can take just one apple tree and turn it into 4 or 5, that prolongs this movement. That prolongs how many deer are gonna be coming through here and for how long, because as soon as this apple tree runs out of apples, a lot of this movement shuts off. Now it's still got good beans and good food plots, but those apples at the end of September, if they can find that somewhere else, they're gonna hit it. You can bet on that. So I'm just trying to prolong movements, prolong attraction periods as long as possible, and keep deer on a consistent pattern of movement that I can hunt them effectively. So when you're looking at those early season setups, yes, you can have good setups and good situations, but at the end of the day, if you can't hunt them safely and effectively without blowing up a movement, throwing off that consistent pattern, making a buck aware that he's being hunted, that's not a good idea. So this is the whole scenario that if I am going to hunt early season and I have a buck consistent coming out of this inside corner on the back side of this field, if I get that north wind on a cold front or a northeast, he's got the wind in his favor, so do I. I'll never get busted here. He's got everything he's looking for, and I've got a 27 to 30 yard shot to kill him. So if I am going to be hunting early season, this is gonna be where it's at, or a situation very similar. Low impact, easy access, great wind direction. He's got the wind in his favor as well. It's got everything that he could possibly want at the end of September. It's very high quality. And at the end of the day, I can get in here and hunt it safe. If I don't end up killing one, I haven't destroyed the backside of my property. I haven't gone deep. So these deer have no idea that they're being hunted.